Welcome to Believing the Bizarre,
where we dive into the unknown and the unusual
and tell you whether or not we find it believable.
That is right. It is another bonus listener submission episode. Which means it's Friday. Happy Friday, everyone. Unless you're listening this late, then happy weekend or next week. But if you're listening to this as it comes out, Friday is here.
This is going to be one of the most stressful Fridays of my life when this comes out. So
that's true because of your personal life and teaching and everything. Yeah.
So that's really exciting, though.
I just want to say this. This story came to us about a month ago. So keep that in perspective with how far back we are. So again, like I think we already alluded to it or mentioned it before. If you sent us a story, we're getting to it. We promise.
We're going to get there.
Because this is a month out and we're just now getting to it. But we just want to make them good. We're saying quality over quantity, right? Isn't that what they say?
I hope that the audience respects that.
Yes.
Yes.
So this listener submission comes to us from Jessica, and the story spread, which I'm assuming, based on my own research, because I didn't hear back, between Connecticut and South Carolina.
Okay, cool. Where's Connecticut? You don't know.
Northeast.
You don't know.
Yeah,
I
don't know. I geometry. Yeah, I don't know anything. It's in the United States, apparently. So they say.
Isn't Harvard in Connecticut?
I think it's Boston, Massachusetts. No,
is Yale
which one's Stanford?
That's California.
Some Ivy League shit is somewhere. Y'all smart up there in Connecticut.
Yale. I don't know.
That's where LeBron does, and he's like, I'm taking my towels. So that was when that shit happened. Damn it. Anyways, let me just put this up front. Let me preface this by saying this episode involves a specific entity. I don't think that's probably the right word, but that's what I'm going to use, so to speak. And we'll get to it at the end. But I want to touch on it lightly because, transparently, behind the scenes, I was researching this topic for a couple weeks now. Like, I ordered a book. So the episode on what this could potentially be will be coming out eventually. So if it seems like we're a little bit light on the discussion in terms of this specific thing, that's why. I know that's kind of stupid without, like, going into what we're talking about. I'm just trying to preface it a little bit.
Well, I'm hyped.
Are you ready?
I'm hyped. Let's go.
Let's go. So let's jump into the story of the Shadow Man. Encounter 1. So when Jessica was about 8 years old, she had just lost her father, which is sad and traumatic. She still remembers this experience as if it was just a few days ago. Shortly after his death, she was with her grandmother who was cooking dinner in the kitchen. Her grandmother asked her to go in the hallway and get a washcloth. Now let me just interject here and say I'm not sure why the washcloth would be in the hallway. But that's how it goes. Do you have washcloths in your hallway?
Maybe, yeah. We have a linen closet. That's where we keep our towels.
There you go. You answered the mystery. So as 8-year-old Jessica is heading towards the hallway, she notices that her cat's meowing. And initially, Jessica just thought maybe her cat wanted attention or food. You know how cats be. Cat's gonna cat. But instead, as she turns around, she sees a black figure standing at the top of her stairs. Now, she didn't recognize the man, and being naive and 8 years old, she asks the man, "Who are you?" And he doesn't reply back. And after a few moments, this black shadow figure starts descending down the stairs. And she tells him, "Stop coming down the stairs." But he ignored her and he continued coming down. So naturally, she ran back into the kitchen with her grandmother, now having a pale, terrified face instead of a washcloth, and her grandmother actually jokingly was like, "Oh, you look like you've seen a ghost," as the saying goes. So 8-year-old Jessica wasn't quite able to process, I'm imagining, what she saw, what happened. So instead of jumping to the paranormal, as you are, the listener, because this is a paranormal podcast, she told her grandmother that there was a man in the hallway. So this was unsettling to her grandmother because supposedly they were the only two people in the home at the time. So together, they walked into the hallway in the area with the staircase, so that Jessica could show her grandmother the man. But, as you'd expect, he was no longer there.
Absolutely. Why would he stay around?
Right. So Jessica was disappointed. She instantly thought that her grandmother was going to think she was lying, crying wolf. So she told her grandmother in desperation, he was right there. He was on the stairs. However, instead of being skeptical, her grandmother just simply told her, he's just a friend. If you leave him alone, he'll leave you alone.
Excuse the fuck out of me?
And for a while, that was the last Jessica talked about or saw the shadow man.
Oh my god, what? I didn't expect that. That's crazy. That's like the beginning of a scary movie.
Dude, no matter whether it's advice because your girlfriend just broke up with you, or you have an exam, or you see a freaking ghost, grandma's always got the advice. They always know what to say. I guess they have the years of experience, right? They probably have
yeah, for sure.
Like a little pamphlet, little book of like things to say at the right time.
It was written in the 30s, they know.
But she nailed that. Okay, so encounter 2. This encounter takes place 8 years later, and another tragedy strikes, actually. This happens when Jessica's best friend dies. She doesn't go into the specifics. Obviously, I would never ask, so that's just out of sight, out of mind. But the fact is she's 16 years old, and her best friend just died.
That's sad.
And she didn't want to go to the funeral because of all the grief and the negative energy she was feeling, which I don't think anybody would jump on her for that initially, because it sounds a little rough from a faraway perspective, but I think most people have had somebody pass where you just feel so down and lethargic that it just seems like nothing matters anymore.
I get that. Funerals are not for the dead, they're for the living.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't blame her, but at the last minute, she decides that the right thing to do for the memory of her best friend would be to go. So she gets dressed up, and she has her mom bring her to the funeral so she can say her final goodbyes to her best friend. So as she's standing at the service, she catches a glimpse of a butterfly, which I'll interject is a universal sign for hope. That apparently, that's what they say. It's like a metaphor, or not a metaphor. What's it? Not an analogy. Symbol. That's it. Yes.
Oh, okay.
It's a symbol of hope, apparently. So Jessica starts focusing on this butterfly, and she claims that watching it and focusing on it actually like takes her out of reality for a moment. Like, she forgets she's at the funeral, she forgets what's happened, and she forgets that she just lost her best friend. So she's watching this butterfly float around. It's landing on flowers, it's landing on people, but eventually the butterfly gets far enough away that she's unable to find it. And losing sight of the butterfly just immediately grounds her back in reality. She's back at the funeral, she's back outside. But as this is happening, and as her eyes and her mind are shifting back to reality, she notices off in the distance a shadow outline in the back by a tree. However, this shadow is not occupied by a person. It's not a person's shadow. It's not a being. Again, it is the shadow person, and her mind is quickly transcended back to her memory at the age of 8, and she knows it's him. It's not another one. It's not, I'm seeing something else. It is like without a shadow of doubt, in her mind, it is the same thing. She calls it her ghost. So if I kind of interchange that throughout the story, she kind of calls it her ghost. I'm kind of putting like the shadow man quality on it. So I don't want to, that's my, I just saw my hand in the window and I got freaked out. Whew.
My heart.
Whew. Damn that window. It's dark in here, y'all. So I'm putting the shadow man out there. She kept saying like it was my ghost, like it's something following her, something around her. So as she sees this shadow man, she wants to uncover some type of identity, something tangible to grasp onto. So as she's looking at this shadow man, she starts peering closer and tries to really focus on the form. But as soon as she does, he completely vanishes. And that is the end of the second encounter.
Oh my goodness. These are building.
Oh, yes. Now, the next encounter. And let me be clear, I called it the next encounter instead of the third encounter because she made a point to mention that this wasn't the third encounter. So somewhere between that funeral and the story I'm about to tell you makes me assume that there were other occurrences. However, they must not have been grandiose enough to mention. This was the next one that, the way she puts it, it's a highlight and it's one that took energy from her. So Jessica, at this point in time in this encounter, is 7 months pregnant and in labor.
Oh.
Yes, and if you don't know, that's very early to be in labor.
It is, yeah.
Which is both scary for her and the baby. It's premature time. It's when complications happen, so naturally it's kind of an anxiety-filled time for her. So she calls her mom, and she says that she's having uncontrollable back spasms. She tried everything she could to make them stop, but it got to the point where she had to call her doctor, who scheduled an appointment with Jessica. It was about 15 minutes before the doctor's office was closed, but I'm assuming due to her circumstance and the pain she was in, he made an exception. So he saw her, he did examinations, and he noticed that she was about 8 centimeters dilated, which, at 7 months pregnant is, the things are going down. Which I guess at this point, for like a breakdown of what that might mean, contractions are stronger, and actually it's known to cause backaches. So that's tied back into that.
Sense,
like,
yeah.
It makes sense for why she's having... The backaches aren't paranormal here. Like, that makes sense based on the pregnancy. That was just kind of an instigation to get the visits going, and the doctor naturally is like, you need to go to the hospital.
Yeah.
So she ends up going to the hospital, and they give her medication to stop the delivery process, which I have no idea what that is.
I'm medicine.
I'm just a simple man. That means nothing to me. But it worked.
Good.
Until she woke up at 4 a.m. And she wakes up, and the back pain is back, and it is excruciating. But it doesn't matter, because there in the corner of the hospital room is the Shadow Man, and he's just standing there, and he's just watching her. He didn't say anything, and she didn't say anything. So naturally, she's concerned that this ghost, as she puts it, was trying to hurt her or take the baby. The nurse got called in, and she checked where she was at, and it was time. Like, that night, she was going to have her baby.
Okay, no matter, like, there's no more
medication.
backup medication.
No Tylenol.
Okay.
Put that away. So, an hour later, Jessica's son was born.
That's good.
The doctor went and brought Jessica her son so she could hold him. And as the doctor is walking toward her with her son, she can see the Shadow Man behind the doctor following them towards her. And at this point, I think it was just so much like exasperation. She just started looking around, and she's like, is anybody else seeing this? Is anybody else noticing what's happening? And they didn't. Nobody else noticed. Nobody else acted like they saw anything. So she's finally given her son by the doctor, and this is the way she describes it. Something happened to make the room go incredibly bright, but then suddenly the room and the natural lighting came back, and everyone was fine, everything was fine, and everybody acted like they didn't just see what happened. Pretty much quote.
Okay.
I don't know what that means, but that happened. When she had to give up her son so they could weigh him and do all that medical procedure stuff that I don't know yet, she saw the ghost. She saw the Shadow Man again standing in front of her son watching. Now, that was the last time she saw this Shadow Man, this ghost, until her son was 7 years old. She saw this man standing in her son's room, and in what I assume was some form of protection. This is me assuming, she didn't say, but she asked her son to follow her out to the living room. So I'm assuming without context that it was kind of like, okay, he's in here, let's get out, right? So she goes to the living room, but then she realizes that her son did not follow her. So she heads back into the room, and she asks her son, why aren't you listening to me? And he said, Mommy, I was too scared because I saw the black man. So, for the first time outside of her grandmother's comment, someone else acknowledged her ghost, the Shadow Man. Somebody else finally saw it. And, I mean, it makes sense that it would be her son, right?
We have a multi-generational ghost here.
That's true. So she wanted to be sure, though. Like, she wanted to be crystal clear on this. So she drew a picture of who she's been seeing since she was 8 years old, since she was almost the age of her son. The picture was of a Shadow Man with a black brimmed hat, no face, just darkness, a long trench coat, and a cane. And he said, "That's the man that comes in my room."
Oh my god, I got chills.
So just like her grandmother, she told her son, "There's nothing to be afraid of. The man never hurt her or anyone else, and if you leave him alone, he'll leave you alone." And that is Jessica's story up to this point of the Shadow Man. Let's discuss. Okay, so for people out there that are familiar with the phenomenon, naturally you're thinking the Hat Man.
The Hat Man.
The Hat Man. Which, I guess, I don't know if I already said this, but I'm going to say it again. William, who gave us our first listener submission about the Great Dismal Swamp and whatever was out there mimicking voices. He actually, one of the stories he gave me in that submission was about the Hat Man. Did I say it on here before?
I don't think you did.
Yeah, he was in his bedroom, and he looked and he saw this man wearing a hat standing in the archway of his door, but there was a light on the outside, and it wasn't like, it was a opaque shadow figure that wasn't letting light come through it. And he hid under the covers, and then when he pulled it back out, it was, I believe it was gone. It's been a while since I listened to that, but I believe that's how it went down. So again, I already kind of mentioned this, but Hat Man is a topic I do plan on doing in the near future, so I don't want to get too much into that. But at the same time, even though this ghost, as she calls it, was wearing a hat, the Hat Man is known to be more menacing. And even though it's creepy and unsettling, nothing about this ghost that she's experiencing seems sinister or menacing. It actually feels a little bit more protective.
I don't know. The whole hospital thing felt totally menacing to me, but
it feels like a transition. It's like, I was there for the birth of your son, and I am now following or protecting, creeping on him.
I wonder if the grandma was aware too.
I know, and it was like to shield her. It's almost like when you give more food, more thought to something, it grows. Kind of like Slender Man, the tulpa idea. It's like, if I can convince my granddaughter to ignore it, then maybe it won't become more of a thing, which clearly obviously didn't happen. But I would be curious in a follow-up to hear if she still sees this entity, because I wonder if it really did transition to her son. So again, Hat Man, potentially because of the hat, but I don't want to go too far into that because that'll be another time, and it doesn't seem to perfectly match the MO. What about the cane?
I mean, they're just good for walking, they're good for defense, it's a good thing to have. I don't know.
I'm just asking you if I want to buy one, that's why.
Oh, okay.
I want some swag. But, okay, I would be interested to know if anybody in my lineage used a cane. Not that it doesn't have to be something or someone that was related to her, but that would be one of the first things I would think about is like, did my great-great-grandfather, did they have a cane? It's kind of it's kind of a defining thing at a certain age. Like, oh, that's so-and-so, they use a cane or they have a walker, you know what I mean?
Yeah, he always wears a hat and a coat and a cane.
Yeah, it's always raining where he's at. He must be in Seattle. No, that was Connecticut, not South Carolina. What do you think about the weird play on reality? Because it happens multiple times. It's like the butterfly, she's taken out of reality and she sees this shadow entity, this ghost, and then the weird light in the hospital and she's taken out of reality. Like, it almost, like, interdimensional? Something? I don't know. It
almost feels like a transition to, like, the spirit world for a moment to me.
Yeah, like
without thinking about it.
He's a sign that you're slipping out of our reality, our universe. Yeah, you know what? It's a very simplified but potentially correct diagnosis. Here's another thing. And I think this is in my head because I love it. And that has to do with time. Every 27 years, I believe. Doesn't it seem like there's a play on the 7-8 years? She's 8 years old when she first sees it. Fast forward 8 years, she's 16 when she sees it at the funeral. I don't know how much time passes between that and the next encounter when she has her son, but it's 7-8 years after that when she sees it again in her son's room. It seems like there's a play on 7 and 8.
I bet it's 8 because, like, you have when you conceive a kid, there's 9 months there.
Yeah.
So I want to bet it's 8. And I bet 8 years is a thing. I'd like to know if there's other 8-year intervals where it happens.
Yeah, that's just something that 8, 16, her son's 7, 8. I don't know. I feel like we would need a little bit more context, a little bit more details. Yeah. But it was something that stood out to me. And if I'm not being crystal clear, I'm giving this a believable I believe this happened. I'm not putting that on you, but I will say there's one thing that I would have done differently, and that's, let me be very clear, that is me from my very, very far perspective here, not like, when something's happening to you, it's like the urgency is level 100. But when we were talking about the Mandela effect and information bias, and I don't know what my example was. It was like, oh, didn't that movie come out that year? You might be more inclined to say yes because I put that on you. Or, oh, the Berenstain Bears. Yeah, wasn't it spelled Berenstein instead of Berenstain? Like, I already put that on you. It would have been interesting to have her son draw it first. Because her drawing it, it could affect his memory a little bit and be like, oh yeah, that's, you know what I mean? And now that doesn't affect how I feel about it. And I think in that moment of like my son sees the same thing I do, naturally you're going to do something. You just want proof. So you're going to draw it and you're going to show. You're not going to be like, all right, take a week. You know, I know your drafting skills aren't the best and you could use some work on the shading, but you know, in a week, get me that, you know, like obviously you're just going to draw it, show him, be like, is this what you see? Cause that feels like drastic.
I feel like she could have scribbled black crayon on a page and he'd be like, yeah, that's it.
That's it. But that's the type of criticism I might have. But I also realize that's from me like 1,000 miles away saying like, well, if I was in that situation, I would, cause you know, it doesn't matter, but it's just the idea of like bias, I guess, so to speak.
Based on the amount of shivers and goosebumps I got on this episode, I give it a believable.
Yeah, between the recording of the episode to when we transitioned to the discussion, Charlie like showed me his arm and it's just full of goosebumps.
Yeah, so I'm gonna go with believable.
Yeah, and some of you freaks out there say goose flesh. And that's just weird. We call it goosebumps around here. R.L. Stein knows.
Yeah, like the books.
Yes. So, believable across the board. Thank you, Jessica, for submitting your stories and your encounters.
Yeah, what a great story.
We apologize for getting to it so late, but it's just the nature of the beast, as they say.
Yeah, we've got back orders.
Yeah, we got some back orders. Some people are on layaway over here. But thank you, everybody, for listening. Thank you for continually sending us your stories. We love reading them. We love presenting them. From the people we've heard back from, it seems like you're enjoying our takes and discussion on them. So that's good to hear.
Yeah, like I wouldn't want to put out something you didn't like.
Yeah, we wouldn't want to offend you or anything. I know the ramen noodle rant might have been a bit much, but I was in the moment.
As always, catch us next week on Believing the Bizarre,
a podcast as bizarre as you are.